Welcome to the Rewilded Human podcast, where Dr. Lucille, holistic psychiatrist and psychotherapist, and Dr. Lynn, naturopath and nutritional consultant, help you reconnect with your true self through practical tips on mental health, nutrition, exercise, relationships, and spirituality. With a dash of humor, they tackle today's toughest issues to guide you back to a harmonious, vibrant life. Rediscover your natural self, just as nature intended. In today's episode,
find a supportive community, because you're usually not living in a supportive community when you're with a narcissist. Often you are like the black sheep, almost. If you identify that you're having a problem with this person that other people may think is wonderful, and have no idea, they have no idea why you would have a problem. Start changing how you communicate with the narcissist. You start becoming very protective of your own personal life.
You're doing this and you're controlling the conversation, the situation, and everything. So at least, because I think being with a narcissist is the worst form of losing control, because you feel like you have no control over your life. And so I really like this tactic, because it's like you're taking your control back.
Welcome again, everybody, to the Rewilded Human podcast. This is episode number 58. And I and my beautiful, brilliant partner here, Lynn Hardy, we are going to continue from our last discussion in episode 57 about narcissism. I'm Dr. Lucille. I'm a holistic psychiatrist, psychotherapist, and my dearest friend, Lynn, is the brains behind the podcast, and she's also a clinical nutritionist and a naturopath. And we're here to help you fulfill yourself so that you have the most amazing life. So in our last episode, we went over some of the ways you can tell whether or not you are with, or you in any way have a narcissist in your life. And we went over the toxic narcissist and the covert narcissist. And in this episode, we want to help arm you with strategies and tactics for how to deal with these people.
Yes, exactly. It was such a great episode. If you guys haven't listened, please go back to episode 57. But I'm going to give you a really quick recap of the 5 things that we covered, just in case you missed it. So 5 signs to look out for that you have a narcissist in your life: constant need for admiration, lack of empathy, gaslighting, grandiosity, control, and manipulation. So if any of these ring true for someone in your life, please go back to episode 57, watch that before continuing with this episode. At the end of the episode, Lucille, you dropped a couple of bombs, one was gray. What was it? Sorry, gray?
Gray rocking or
gray
yellow
rocking and yellow rocking, right? So that really got my attention, and I'm very, very curious, because we don't want to leave you guys without solutions. And even though we said in the previous episode that, the narcissist usually will not change, even therapy will not change them, medication will not change them. So it's really up to you and what you can do to basically change yourself, or to learn to live with it, or maybe Dr. Lucille has some different techniques for us. So tell me about these techniques, Lucille.
Okay, well, before we go into the gray rocking and yellow rocking, there are a few preliminary steps that a person would need to take. First of all, this is for the people who know that they are in a difficult situation. They're waking up to the fact that life is not going to get any easier, and they really need to come up for air. They really need to change something, because they can't go on living this kind of misery with their narcissist in whatever, facet of life. It could be a family member. It could be your spouse. It could be boss. It could be anybody. You are fragile and vulnerable in this state. Before you were confused, lost, and totally miserable. Now you may be in that state of, oh my God, what can I do? I'm seeing that it's not all me. Where do I turn for help? Now, therapy, yes, you can certainly go for therapy. That is somewhat sparse. There aren't that many therapists available that are, covered by insurance or whatever. You may have to pay out of pocket. And so while that's wonderful, you you may have to realize that, it's not always accessible right when you need it. And even if you do get a good therapist, another thing that I find is really important is that you find a supportive community, because you're usually not living in a supportive community when you're with a narcissist. Often you are like the one person, like you're the black sheep almost. If you identify that you're having a problem with this person that other people may think is wonderful, and have no idea, they have no idea why you would have a problem. You need to really strengthen yourself, and that comes through community. And I would recommend, first of all, going to the various podcasts, so not only our own, but other podcasts, to educate yourself a little bit more. Know that, yes, people have run into this. Many, many people have run into this, and loads of experts and professionals have studied it. And it's not just you, the lone wolf in the wilderness, crying and screaming and whatever. You have a lot of very important information that you need to access so that you can get really, really clear about what you're dealing with. So there are the podcasts, there are Facebook groups, and I highly recommend those. You have to find the one that suits you, but where people will literally mutually support one another going through all of this, right?
Yes.
I think that's really crucial. You may not be at a point where you're ready to just leave, and maybe it's not a situation where you can leave ever, but there are certain things that you can do to start healing and armoring yourself, strengthening yourself so that you're not continually wounded. So one of the things that people often talk about is start changing how you communicate with the narcissist. You start becoming very protective of your own personal life, because what the narcissist will do is they will take whatever information they have about you, about your personal life or anything like that, and they will turn it against you. Oh, you're having problems with your best friend. Well, that's because you're so insensitive, or you blah, 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 or blah, 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 and they'll turn it against you so that they continue to keep you in that state of feeling like you're defective. So what you do is you just stop giving them any ammunition.
So do you just stop talking to them? Do you just stop talking about
it has to be
topics?
very superficial. It's going to be very superficial.
Yeah.
That you come home from work and they're asking, well, how did your day go? And you're going to go, fine, thanks. How was yours?
Yeah, exactly. Because
right?
as soon as you give them a little bit of ammunition, like you say, oh, Kathy and whatever did this, and you're right, they go right at you, and it's absolutely, I totally get it. Yes.
So you protect your own information. You don't tell them about your dreams, your desires, your wishes, all the wonderful things you're looking forward to. You guard that jealously, because they will tear it all down.
Yeah.
Okay. And so that then leads into the other two strategies, which are so important: gray rocking and yellow rocking. So picture rocks, like rocks.
Yes.
And if you start with a gray rock, you don't want to cuddle up to a gray rock. There's nothing about a gray rock. Well, I guess people do like rocks, but for the most part, gray rocks do not exude warmth and love. They don't attract, right?
Yes.
So you become like the gray rock, which is that you emit total neutrality. Like you don't give off anything, right?
Okay.
Another way of looking at it, like you just don't express emotion. You don't express emotion to the narcissist. If you have to have conversations with them, it's a little bit like talking to a lawyer. Just the facts, ma'am. Okay, we have to go to this party on Friday. This is when we'll start. Can you, get the kids ready for bed? Whatever, and just logistics. Yeah. And that's it, right? They will try, as we've said in the previous episode, they will try to bait you, to get you, provoke you, whatever. And you're just going to practice being that gray rock. Nothing that they do can provoke you into other than sitting there like a gray rock. That's it. Now that can be very hard to do. You do need to keep practicing it.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes you need to practice it in the mirror because you kind of know what they're going to come at you with.
Yeah.
You're practicing the worst case scenario and how you're just going to be level like a gray rock. Eventually, what they'll do if they see that they can't get that rise out of you is they'll turn their villainy on somebody else. They'll go elsewhere.
And
right?
so you would recommend this even if it's your spouse, your husband, for example?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. They're the ones who can do you the most harm. So you have to protect yourself most stringently from
But wouldn't this also affect your intimacy if you're not talking about intimate things? And it would.
That's right. Yeah, but when were you really intimate in a way that it didn't backfire on you?
Yeah.
You know,
correct.
People do get actually happier when they've mastered this and they realize, wow, I finally feel like I'm in the superior position. I can do this. I can master this, especially people who can't leave for a variety of reasons. They at least feel empowered that they're not a victim any longer.
Or you're in control because you've made this decision. You're doing this and you're controlling the conversation, the situation, and everything. So at least, because I think being with a narcissist is the worst form of losing control because you feel like you have no control over your life. And so I really like this tactic because it's like you're taking your control back.
Exactly. Exactly. Now, yellow rocking is a milder version of this, and it may be more appropriate with a covert narcissist, or somebody who's not, or somebody who's less malevolent in their approach, but they're still manipulative, exploitative, etc. So the yellow rock it's exuding a somewhat warmer energy, right? It's yellow, not gray. Okay.
Yes.
So how this works is your spouse or whoever it is wanting to get a rise out of you. They're wanting to criticize how you did something in the day, or they're wanting to criticize your best friend or whatever. Instead of getting provoked, what you do is you stay in a state of constant positivity. Again, you don't necessarily talk about anything in any depth or in any detail. You don't tell them much about you. But, they're starting to tell you, your best friend, Laura there, she kind of looks like she's flirting with me sometimes, and you're going, well, I'm sure that she's just being friendly. Anything that they try to insert as a poison dart, you pull it out and you look at it and you go, oh, that's lovely, but it's not really relevant, but thanks very much. That's it, right? So you're always focused on the positive, no matter what. But as I say, again, you're not getting into any detail. You're not getting into conversations. You're just the happiest human being on the planet and cannot be basically messed with. You're just not going to be dragged down by any negativity. And people will look at it and go, oh, positive, toxic positivity. No, it's a strategy to protect yourself. Let's be honest.
And with the yellow rock, you make me think of sunshine. And the sun is warm, it gives light, but it can also burn you. So be careful. Don't go too close. But I really like this analogy.
So that one, you have to pick and choose which strategy you use, the gray rocking or the yellow rocking, and just keep practicing. The other piece to this is once you start feeling more empowered, you're not a victim, you're not constantly vulnerable to whatever the narcissist is doing. You live your life, okay? But it's kind of like you live a separate life, a secret life almost. And I had a client once who had to do this, and she was a mental health professional as well. And unbeknownst to her, after a while, she began to cotton on. I've had a number of female mental health professionals, in fact, who've had this experience where they figure out that they're married to a narcissist. In order to, and children have been involved, so it's been very difficult to just leave. Although in one case, the one client did in fact leave. It was hugely messy. But what you do then is you kind of try to make them irrelevant. your partner irrelevant. In other words, you just go about your life very quietly, doing what you need to do without telling them anything. So you do have to lead a double life.
But they are normally very controlling. Will they let you do that?
Well, if you have to be secretive enough that they don't, they don't even know what you're doing, and they don't have any way of getting at it, so to speak. If you keep it guarded, and even if they find out, you can gray rock and yellow rock. You don't have to respond. You've done nothing wrong. Remember that you've done nothing wrong. You've just, maybe you decided you're going to, start that writing project, or you're going to start helping other women who are involved in these relationships, or whatever, but you are doing nothing wrong, just not revealing, and you're not revealing for a very good reason, which is that it would, there could be a reign of terror if the partner found out, right?
Absolutely. Lucille, what about narcissist parents? If your mother or your father is a narcissist, what would be the coping skills in dealing with them? Would that be different than dealing with a partner?
It depends, because, our relationships with our parents set us up for relationship problems later in life. It can actually be in some ways a good thing, because you have to reassess everything you thought was true about the relationship. And usually what you thought was true is, I really was the worst child ever. And, my poor narcissistic mother, narcissistic father, they could not cope with me because I was just so horrible. So you're going to have to look at all of that and go, really? Was that really true?
Yeah.
And it can be a very tumultuous but productive investigation into your whole life.
Yeah.
So start seeing things that you hadn't seen before, were prevented from seeing.
Yeah.
And it, in many ways, that strengthens you so that you no longer will ever get drawn into a relationship with a narcissist, ever, 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 because you have strengthened your self-esteem immune system. Because the people who do get involved, who tend to be vulnerable to narcissists, are the ones who have a major issue with their own self-esteem.
Yeah. And they're often, like you said, psychiatrists, therapists, healers. Like I'm seeing this pattern over and over again, that it's people that are actually out there helping people, and the narcissists, like, we're just perfect targets for them.
Exactly. So it takes a lot of work, but especially if you've been with more than one narcissist in an intimate relationship, it takes a lot of work, and the work has to be on yourself. It really cannot be about, well, I'm going to try and change that person. No, it really has to be focused on, I have to up-level myself. I have to heal my self-esteem. I have to ensure that I listen to my intuition and my judgment going forward. It requires an overhaul of your whole life in many ways, which is great. As I said, it's great because it immunizes you from ever getting involved with these people again. So you tell me, Lynn, if you, once you came out of your relationships, like, did you find that you felt like you were no longer drawn to people like this?
Yeah, absolutely. I just ran from people like that. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
It's like your radar's up, and you can you
Yeah.
feel it immediately that something's wrong. And I think when I got out of my relationship, I did so much internal work. I did so much work on myself that I attracted a totally different kind of person. And I think that's a really important point, is that you kind of, like you said, you bring these toxic patterns from what you grew up with, your parents or your family, for example, and then you get attracted to the wrong kind of person because it's familiar. But once you step out of that and you do the inner work, and I did so much, like journaling, meditation, reading. There was no internet back then, but I mean, you just really turn inward. And the type of person that I just became a magnet for a different kind of relationship and for a different kind of person. So, I think it's really important to do that kind of work. In the previous episode, Lucille, we mentioned that therapy is not really the best solution, because normally the therapy is for the spouse or the partner or the person that is involved with the narcissist, because narcissist is not a very good participant in therapy, or they usually won't even go to therapy, or if they do go to therapy, they will put the blame on you and trying to get the therapist on their side, correct?
That's right.
So,
Yes.
you know, whereas for most relationship issues, the first course of action would be to get help. But with the narcissist, this is a completely different situation. So while you would be able to offer support to the partner, it's much more difficult to be like a mediator between the couple, right?
Exactly. Remember that the narcissist always has their own self-interests in mind. Always. So even if they say, sure, yeah, we can go to marital therapy, you have to be very skeptical of
It's
what
part of the manipulation, most likely.
Part of the manipulation. What often happens is the diagnosis of narcissism is usually confirmed the first time that the therapist asks the narcissist a question. And it can be a very, benign question.
What would you ask?
Well, you could say anything. You could say, well, and when did you feel that there was an issue between you and your wife, for example? And they could blow up at that. There is no issue between us. It's only her. It's only her issue, right?
Yeah.
So any attempt to get them to look at themselves as being involved in the unhealthy dynamics, at some point they're going to blow up and walk out the room. And that often happens. They just leave in the middle of the session.
And how do you deal with that?
You don't. As a therapist, you don't. You just you have your evidence.
And at that point, would you tell the partner?
Yeah, I think you give the partner an option. Listen, you do give the narcissistic spouse, the option to, you always say that the right things, which is, yes, if they reconsider, they want to speak to me, I'm open to talk, and, on and on and on. But if it becomes very, very clear that it's only about an agenda of the narcissist needs everybody to confirm that they are right and everybody else is wrong, then there's nothing you can do. And then you can offer your services to the spouse or partner for, individual work if they want to. It's up to them. Yeah. Right.
Is there a point where you would tell the person to actually leave the relationship or the marriage?
I never tell anybody what to do. We just look at what this is the territory. We're seeing everything clearly now. Yeah. What is your choice? Basically, what is your choice? So yeah, if they feel like they have to stay, sometimes the only thing you can do is help them with some coping strategies. If they're intent on leaving, then you do everything you can to help them leave. But I never ever tell anybody what to do. If there is abuse, okay, if there's frank abuse, which that can happen, of course, where there's physical abuse, where there is financial abuse, for example, where the woman is cut off from any money, so she can't even buy food for her children, whatever. Then I would have to inform her that this is an abusive situation. I am now a party to it because I have the information. I would have to go to the authorities with this information. And then, and I would say to them, either you do something to extricate yourself and your children from it, or I have to report this. Okay.
That's a really tough situation to be in.
That's a really tough situation. And again, it has to do with if children are involved, and the abuse to the mother is impacting the children's well-being, that's when I have to report. Other than that, sometimes just being blunt with people. Yeah, this is frank abuse, even if there aren't children involved in it, whatever. And I tell them bluntly, this is abuse. And sometimes you can't even continue in the therapy with them if they insist that they're going to stay. So it's kind of like you're enabling them as a therapist.
Yeah.
You're enabling them to stay in an abusive situation. And you have to say, I'm sorry, I cannot help you then. If you're going to insist on doing this, I have no role here.
Very tough situation. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I was going to wrap up the episode, and unless you had something more to add, Lucille?
No, other than, if you do, as we said in the last episode, if you do feel like you are in this position with a narcissist, please seek help. You are definitely not alone. There are loads and loads of people out there now who are getting help and who are forming groups and spreading information. You do not have to just remain passive or in the strange belief that somehow you're the only problem.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that's really important to recognize. And I love the gray rocking and the yellow rocking. I think that's really helpful, and I hope you guys found this helpful as well. Guys, that comes to the end of our episode, and thank you again so much for watching. Thank you for all your amazing insight, Dr. Lucille. I feel like I need to get your bank account number and send you some money for this. I feel like I got a full therapy session out of you today. It was amazing. Guys, please share this episode, like this episode, comment below, subscribe, and if you're listening on one of the podcast platforms, please write us a review because that helps us tremendously. And in the next episode, we're going to be discussing the difference between how men and women think, and I think it's going to be a really interesting episode. So we'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you, Dr. Lucille.
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning into the Rewilded Human podcast. We hope you're leaving with insights to reconnect with your natural, vibrant self. Remember, the information shared here is for educational and inspirational purposes only and is not a substitute for medical advice. Always consult a qualified healthcare provider for any personal health concerns. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, subscribe, and share it with others who might benefit. We'll see you next time, ready to dive even deeper. Stay wild, stay true, and stay tuned.